What an amazingly wild ride this has been. These past 7 seasons that we've been watching these agents, we've seen them face threats like Hydra and now the Chronicoms, and they tackled Ghost Rider and time travel and aliens, and just so much has happened on this show in this series, and now their journey has finally reached an end, unfortunately. But I feel that it really was a fitting ending, and things really came full circle here that I really love to see here. And I loved every second of it, just as I've loved every second of this show that we've seen. And it was really amazing, and a lot happened here. But before I get into breaking down everything that we have to talk about here, I gotta give a major spoiler warning here, because if you haven't seen this episode yet, this is really your last chance, because this is it's the series finale. So if you haven't seen this, then don't watch this video, because major spoilers. I repeat, major spoilers. So anyway, now that you've been warned, and if you're still here, I hope that you've seen this episodes. So let's get into it and talk about everything that went down in this series finale of Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So, of course, we did have 2 episodes last night, so there is a lot to talk about and break down here for the series finale, because, like I said, 2 episodes, and one episode is already a lot to talk about, but then 2 of them, wow, this is a lot to talk about. So I'm actually not going to spend too much time talking about episode 12, because first of all, not really too much happened in this episode, and also, there's a lot to talk about with the series finale. So, let's talk a little bit about episode 12 first. So, most of this episode really took place on the Chronicom ship, which, by the way, really reminded me of Star Wars. Like, it was giving me some Death Star vibes, like the inside of it, the walls really reminded me of, like, the Death Star. So, that was really cool to see. But like I said, most of the stuff in this episode took place on this ship, like Quake versus Korra, and, some other Chronicom stuff that was going on. But really, the main part of this episode was the ending and kind of the cliffhanger with, of course, the return of Fitz. Because we saw through this whole episode that Simmons, she's losing her memory. She doesn't know who Fitz is, and she's starting to forget everything else, everyone else in her life. Like, when Daisy showed up to rescue her, she didn't even know who she was. And I love how when Deke was there trying to help her remember, he tried doing a Fitz impression, which, by the way, was terrible. But, I mean, at least he tried. And I guess it did kind of work, because Simmons thought he was trying to sound like James Bond, and I mean, James Bond and Fitz do sound kind of similar sometimes, so, I mean, there's that. But she has lost pretty much all her memory. But by the end of the episode, when the whole team reunites in the Speakeasy, where we've seen the agents team up all throughout the season and really throughout the whole series, we get some big moments here, because even though Simmons doesn't really know these people, and she doesn't really know what she's doing, she has all these pieces here, and she just starts putting them together, and she creates this machine, and then this old guy shows up with an extra piece that was from Enoch or one of the Koenigs, and that's added to the machine as well. But nothing happens, because it turns out the key is Simmons' wedding ring. So as soon as she adds that in there, then things really start to go down, because this whole extra secret room opens up, where we have basically a mini version of the Quantum Realm tunnel that we got in Avengers Endgame. And this is the big MCU tie-in that we have in this series finale. It's the freaking Quantum Realm. So it turns out Fitz has been in the Quantum Realm this whole time, and we get some more flashbacks and story later in the second episode, the series finale, that I'll talk about later. But Fitz comes back. Simmons brought him back, and I have to say, I really did miss him. It feels like it's been forever since we saw him. It literally has been over a year since we've seen this character. Or actually, maybe it hasn't. I don't really know for sure. But it's just been too long, and we need this character back, and I'm so glad that he is back. But unfortunately, Simmons has no idea who he is. So that sucks. And then that is where we move on into the series finale, where they have to deal with the repercussions of this, because first of all, they have to help Simmons get back her memory and everything, but then also they still have to defeat the Chronicoms and everything. So throughout the episode, and really at the beginning here, we find out Fitz's plan. So his plan was create an alternate timeline, and which is what we're in right now. So we're no longer in the MCU, and Cora is apparently the key. And in the first episode that we got last night, she got shot by Nathaniel Malik, and I thought she was dead, but turns out she's not, luckily. And so she is the key. Apparently she had to be kept alive, and then that would help continue on the story here, and basically help save the day here. So luckily she is actually alive, but Nathaniel Malik is currently hooking her up to the machines and trying to steal her powers and stuff. So things are definitely not going good here for the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So they come up with this new plan. They are going to go ahead and try and get back into their original timeline using the quantum realm, which, by the way, was really awesome seeing the high budget that we had for this episode, seeing the quantum realm looking exactly like it did in Ant-Man and the Wasp and Avengers Endgame. So that was awesome right there. But unfortunately, in order to do this, they had to have someone stay behind and in where they were in the alternate timeline, so that everyone else could go through the quantum realm and get to the original timeline. So at first Sousa volunteered to do it, and I was like, yes, this is perfect, because then this basically confirms that Sousa is that cop that we saw in the first Avengers movie. But then Deke volunteers to do it, and then they decide that Deke actually is going to do it, so it looks like we're not getting that Sousa Avengers thing, unfortunately. But what's even more unfortunate is that Deke is being left behind. So that's unfortunate, because that's really the last time we see him in the episode, which sucks. But we do see his mother later, so we know he's going to exist in the future. It's just this is the last time of us seeing this version of Deke, so that's really sad. But at the same time, he does get to lead this new team of S.H.I.E.L.D, and that's pretty cool, because we saw what he did with the Deke Squad. So if he can turn this new group of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents into the Deke Squad, then we're in good hands with S.H.I.E.L.D. right there. And honestly, I think it would have been pretty funny if Deke ripped out an eye patch and just put her on, and it's like, boom, he's White Nick Fury from the comics. That would have been hilarious to see, and almost perfect, actually. But it is cool to see that Deke really has come full circle here. He went from his original mission to joining the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and now sacrificing himself, kinda, to stay back in time for the greater good. So that was really awesome to see here. But once the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. do get through the quantum realm and get into their original timeline and bring the Chronicoms along with them, of course, this is where their big plan really gets set into motion. But before I get into that, I do want to talk about the flashbacks that we had with Fitzsimmons. And basically, what happened here was back at the end of Season 6, Fitz and Simmons came up with this plan, and Fitz needed to go into the quantum realm, and he actually put on the same helmet that Deke wore when we first saw him appear back a couple seasons ago. Just a little side note there. But anyway, that was their plan, and we basically saw that Piper and Flint were there to protect the machine where Fitz went into the quantum realm, and they were on guard there. And then we also saw how Simmons also got the device implanted in her neck and everything, and how Enoch was there as well, obviously helping out as well. And so it was really cool to see this, and we saw that they went off and basically lived their own life before this, because they were kind of just putting this off because they knew they had to do it, but they didn't really want to rush into anything. So they went off and did their own thing. They went off into space. They went into this other star system. And this star system is called Alia, which is actually what they end up naming their daughter. So that's a nice little Easter egg reference in there. But after this, they actually go through with it, and they go through the plan, and then we pretty much get back to present day, and things happened as we know it, with Fitz going down to the quantum realm, and then Simmons doing the device thing and everything. So now we're back to the plan and everything, and they have to take down the Chronicoms and basically save the multiverse, honestly. So long story short, things work out. Daisy and Nathaniel obviously have this big fight, and it's basically like Quake versus Quake. Meanwhile, we have May, who has now been able to basically apply empathy to all of the Chronicoms. So now the Chronicoms and humans are friends now. So that's pretty cool. But now back to the Quake versus Quake thing, because Nathaniel's like, you can't kill me without killing yourself. And then Daisy says, that's the plan. And then at this exact moment, I was like, no, no, Daisy, no, don't do that. No, don't kill yourself. But then she did. She basically did this like major quake that destroyed all the ships, killed Nathaniel, killed Sibyl, killed all the Chronicoms that were evil, basically. And yeah, at first I thought Daisy was actually dead, because she started to ice over, just like we saw Yondu do in the end of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And I actually thought she was dead, because then I remembered back to Enoch's final words. He was telling her that her friends will survive, but he never said anything about her surviving. But luckily, she is brought into the ship, and her sister Cora is able to heal her. So I'm guessing that is kind of why she is the key, because Daisy had to do that big quake and basically kill herself, but then Cora had to be there to be able to bring her back to life and everything. So that was a nice little ending there. But after this scene, this is where we jump right into the Fitzsimmons daughter thing, because we basically see that Fitz and Simmons go back to where Piper and Flint were guarding the machine, and it turns out that they were not only guarding the quantum realm machine, but also they were also guarding the thing that meant the most to them in life, and that is their daughter Alia. And I think a nice little reference and tease here in this scene was in the background in her little room there was a bunch of little monkey toys. So I thought that was really cool, because obviously throughout the series, Fitz has always been bringing up monkeys and stuff, so he loves monkeys, so it's cool to see like father like daughter, so that was really cool there. But then we basically see the same flashbacks we saw in the beginning, except instead they were the true ones, where like Simmons was pregnant and Alia was there and all that stuff. So it was the same thing, just the actual truth and the actual reality. And then as soon as this ends, like we get this happy ending here with Fitzsimmons and Alia, and then all of a sudden the screen goes black, and it's like 1 year later, and wait a second, 1 year later, like we get this major time jump here, and it's insane. Like I had no idea they were gonna do a time jump like this, and then all of a sudden all the agents just walk into the speakeasy bar. And one thing I want to talk about before I go over this actual scene is I don't understand the whole final mission thing, because Enoch said that this would be their final mission together, and they all know that it was their final mission together. But why is it their final mission together? Because really, as soon as they save the day, it just jumps into 1 year later, and there's really no explanation of why their shield is gone now, because it's like after they just retire and get done with stuff, like they all acted sad and they didn't want to be done with S.H.I.E.L.D, but they just do it, and there's really no real explanation why this is their final mission. And I feel like it was honestly kind of just an excuse because they had to end the series and everything. But, I'm honestly fine with it, because, this final scene was so great, because, like I said, they're all gathered in a speakeasy. It's 1 year later, and it turns out they've decided to do this annual thing where they will all meet up together and basically catch up with what's been going on in their lives, because obviously they're not S.H.I.E.L.D. anymore, and they've basically gone their separate ways. And we find out what each agent has been doing. We find out that Yo-Yo has been doing some special spy operations, um, basically S.H.I.E.L.D., and she was off on a mission with Piper and Davis, who is now an LMD. So it's cool to see that he is back as an LMD, just like Coulson is. And we see May is now a teacher at S.H.I.E.L.D. Academy, which is actually Coulson Academy, obviously named after Coulson. So that was really cool, and she was there teaching Flint, so that is really great there, a really great ending for her, because she's a very skilled fighter and a very skilled S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, so it's nice to see that she is passing on her knowledge to the younger generation of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. Then we have Fitzsimmons, who of course have now retired. They're just living at home, living their best lives, spending time with their daughter Alia, and yeah, it's cool. It was a very emotional scene here. And then we also have Mac, who is basically the new Nick Fury. Like, when he walks into the meeting at the speakeasy, he's wearing a full-on Nick Fury coat. And then when we see him actually go back to what they're actually doing, because they were all holograms there, it turns out he is Nick Fury. Like, he literally is Nick Fury. He's the official director of S.H.I.E.L.D., and he's on a helicarrier. So that's crazy. He's on a freaking helicarrier. That's awesome. And then we have, of course, the final two, ending it just as the series began with Coulson and Daisy. Daisy goes off and she is in space with Sousa and Cora. So as you can see, Dooza or Doozy is officially confirmed. They're still a thing, living happily ever after, and it seems like they're basically a family now, and they've taken in Cora under their wing, and it's kind of like they're the parents and she's the daughter, except she's actually her sister and everything, but it's like they're training her. She's like the rookie, she's the new trainee joining the team, and I'll talk more about this in a little bit, but this may be S.W.O.R.D, so we'll have to wait and see on that, but like I said, I'll talk about that more in a bit. But finally, let's talk about the main man, Coulson, because this whole series is about him. Literally, the whole series was started because Coulson died in the first Avengers movie, and everyone was so upset about that because we all love the character that they made a whole series about him. So it really is all about him, and I love that he got the final scene of the series, and it showed him opening up this case that Mac had left for him, and he entered the code, and the code for, I don't remember the exact number, I think it was like 136 or 136, and that's actually because this is the 136th episode of the series, so that is a really nice reference there as well. But then Coulson takes out some keys, and then boom, there is Lola sitting right there, of course, his awesome red flying car. And then when he gets in there, of course, he puts on the cool sunglasses, and then he flies away, and the car actually transforms and it like turns black. And this is actually something that happened in the comics, because Nick Fury in the comics, he also changed the car to black as well. So it's cool seeing that here as well with Coulson, and he basically just rides off into the sunset, except it's the middle of the day, so it's more just the sun. So I feel it was a really fitting ending. The whole show was made for Coulson, and it ended with Coulson, so I really love that. And like I said, just a perfect ending. It really came full circle. It was very fitting. But now that I've gone over everything that happened in the episode, the ending, let's talk about what's next, because obviously yesterday morning there was the rumor about the Agents of S.W.O.R.D series getting announced last night, and obviously that didn't happen, but I do still have hope that the Agents of S.W.O.R.D series can still happen on Disney+. It probably won't have all of the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D characters back, but maybe we could at least have Daisy, maybe Yo-Yo, maybe even May, maybe Mac, I don't know. But Fitzsimmons, they're officially retired, so I think they're done. But Daisy, the last scene with her, she and Sousa and Cora were in space. And why else would she be in space unless she was on some kind of cool mission for a secret spy organization like, oh, I don't know, S.W.O.R.D? So maybe Daisy already is a part of S.W.O.R.D and she's literally on a S.W.O.R.D mission right there. So that would be pretty cool. Although at the same time, we're not completely sure, and actually I don't think at all that this show actually takes place in the MCU anymore, because this is clearly a different timeline than the MCU. We saw them hop through a couple different timelines in this episode and this season, but by the end, like, probably the biggest thing sticking out here is Mac with S.H.I.E.L.D and the helicarrier and everything, because in the current MCU, there are no helicarriers that we're aware of, and S.H.I.E.L.D is currently dead, so I don't know how they would explain that. And yeah, so I don't think this really takes place in the MCU anymore, so it is a little disappointing. And unfortunately, if S.W.O.R.D does happen, which I'm hoping it does happen, it may not be involved with these characters, because if this takes place in a whole nother timeline and universe, then it kind of couldn't happen. Although we do know that it is technically part of the MCU because they tied in the quantum realm and everything. So even though it's not a part of the MCU proper, we can consider that this show is part of the MCU multiverse, as I'd like to call it, because we know that in the MCU, with Avengers Endgame, the multiverse idea was introduced, and obviously in a couple of years we have Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So basically, anytime they want, when the heroes of the MCU are traveling through the multiverse, maybe we could see a few cameos from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. characters, and basically they're living in an alternate universe now. So that's crazy to think about here, and it's definitely interesting, and obviously it's disappointing that they're not really in the MCU proper anymore. But I do believe these characters got a really fitting ending. I've said it multiple times in this video, probably like the 8th time I've said it, but it really came full circle, and I loved every second of it. So I would really love to hear your guys' thoughts on this down in the comments below. What did you think about this series finale? What did you think about the ending for these characters? And do you think there are any ties and connections left to the MCU? And do you think there's really any hope for an Agents of S.W.O.R.D Disney Plus series with these characters? So please let me know everything down in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for sticking around for this journey through this final season of Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I've really enjoyed watching this season and this series and making all these videos. So just thank you to everyone that watches this. Just thank you so much. So please drop a like if you enjoyed this video and hit that subscribe button so I can keep you up to date on everything that goes on in the Marvel life.